Chapter 22. How Etzel made Krimhield his bride. Until the fourth day she stayed at Ziesenmar, while the dust upon the highway never came to rest, but rose on every side, as if it were burning, where King Etzel's liegemen rode through Austria. When the king was told aright how royally Krimhield fared through the lands, at thought of this his sorrows vanished. He hastened to where he found the lovely Krimhield. Men saw ride before King Etzel on the road many bold knights of many tongues and many mighty troops of Christians and of Paynims. When they met the lady, they rode along in lordly wise. Of the Russians and the Greeks there rode there many a man. The right good steeds of the Poles and the Walachians were seen to gallop swiftly, as they rode with the might and main. Each did show the customs of his land. From the land of Kiev there rode many a warrior, and the savage Pershingers. With their bow they often shot at the birds which flew there. To the very head they drew the arrows on their bows. By the Danube there lieth in the Austria land a town the men called Tolna. There she became acquainted with many a foreign custom, the which side had never seen afore. She greeted there enow who later came through her to grief. Before Etzel there rode a retinue, merry and noble, courtly and lustly, full 24 princes, mighty and of lofty birth. They would fain behold their lady, and craved not more. Duke Ramon of Wallachia, with 700 vassals, galloped up before her. Like flying birds men saw them ride. Then came Kenskabik with lordly bands. The doughty Hornbog, with full 1,000 men, wheeled from the king away towards the queen. Loudly they shouted after the custom of their land, and madly too rode the kinsmen of the Huns. Then came brave Howart of Denmark, and the doughty Iring. Free of guile was he, and Infried of Thuringia, a stately man, with 1,200 vassals, whom they had in their band. They greeted Krimhield, so that she had therefrom great worship. Then came Saer Bludel, King Etzel's brother, from the Hunnish land. With 3,000 men in lordly wise he rode to where he found the queen. Then King Etzel came, and Sir Dietrich too, with all his fellowship. There stood many worshipful knights, noble, worthy, and good. At this Dame Krimhild's spirits rose. Then Sir Rudiger spake to the queen, Lady, here will I receive the high-born king, whom so I bid you kiss. That must ye do. Forsooth ye may not greet alike King Etzel's men. From the palfrey they helped the royal queen alight. Etzel, the mighty, bode no more, but dismounted from his steed with many a valiant man. Joyfully men saw them go towards Krimhild. 2 mighty princes, as we are told, walked by the lady and bore her train. When King Etzel went to meet her, where she greeted the noble lordling with a kiss in gracious wise. She raised her veil, and from out the gold beamed forth her rosy hue. Many a man stood there who vowed that Lady Helka could not have been more fair than she. Close by stood also Blodel, the brother of the king. Him Rudiger, the mighty Margrave, bade her kiss, and King Gebek too. There also stood Sir Dietrich, 12 of the warriors the king's bride kissed. She greeted many knights in other ways. All the while that Etzel stood at Krimhild's side, the youthful warriors did as people still are wont to do. One saw them riding many a royal joust. This Christian champions did, and Paynim too, according to their custom. In what right knightly wise the men of Dietrich made truncheons from the shafts fly through the air high above the shields. From the hands of doughty knights, many a buckler's edge was pierced through, and through by German strangers. Great crashing of breaking shafts was heard. All the warriors from the land were come, and the king's guests too, many a noble man. Then the mighty king partook him hence with Lady Krimhild. Hard by them a royal tent was seen to stand. Around about the plain was filled with booths, where they should rest them after their toils. Many a comely maid was shown to her place thereunder by the knights, where she then sat with queen on richly covered chairs. The Margrave had so well purveyed the seats for Krimhild that all found them passing good. At this King Etzel grew blithe of mood. What the king there spoke I know not. In his right lay a snow-white hand. Thus they sat in lovers' wise, since Rudiger would not let the king make love to Krimhild secretly. Then one bade the tourney cease on every side. In courtly wise the great rout ended, and Etzel's men betook them to the booths. Men gave them lodgings stretched far away on every side. The day had now an end, there lay at ease, till the bright morn was seen to dawn again. And many a man betook him to the steeds. Oh, what pastimes they gained ply in honour of the king! Etzel bade the Huns purvey all with fitting honours. Then they rode from Tulna to the town of Vienna, where they found many a dame adorned. With great worship these greeted King Etzel's bride, and there was ready for them in great plenty whatever they should have. Many a lusty hero rejoiced at prospect of the rout. The king's wedding feast commenced in merry wise. They began to lodge the guests, but quarters could not be found for all within the town. Rudiger therefore begged those that were not guests to take lodgings in the country round about. I ween men found all time by Lady Krimhield, Sir Dietrich, and many other knight. Their rest they had given over for toil, that they might purvey the guests good cheer. Rudiger and his friends had pastime good. The wedding feast fell on Wintersund, when King Etzel lay by Krimhild in the town of Vienna. With her first husband I trow she did not win so many men for service, though presents she made her known to those who had never seen her. Full many among them spake to the guests, We weened that Lady Krimhild had naught of goods. Now hath she wrought many wonders with her gifts. The feasting lasted 17 days. I trow men can no longer tell of any king whose wedding feast was greater. If so be, 'tis hidden from us. All that were present wore brand new garments. I ween she never dwelt before in Netherland with such a retinue of knights. Though Siegfried was rich in goods, I trow, he never won so many noble men-at-arms as she saw stand before Etzel. Nor hath any ever given at his own wedding feast so many costly mantles, long and wide, nor such good clothes, of which all had were great store, given for Krimhild's sake. Her friends and strangers too were minded to spare no kind of goods, whatever any craved. This they willingly gave, so that many of the knights through bounty stood bereft of clothes. Krimhild thought of how she dwelt with her noble husband by the Rhine. Her eye grew moist, but she hid full well that none might see it, and great worship had been done her after many a grief. Whatever bounty any used 'twas but a wind to that of Dietrich. What Butlung's son had given him was squandered quite. Rudiger's lavish hand did also many wonders, and Prince Bleedel of Hungary bade empty many travelling chests of their silver and their gold. All this was given way. The king's champions were seen to live right merrily. Verbal and Svimmel, the minstrels of the king, each gained at the wedding feast, I ween, full 1,000 marks, or even better, when fair Krimhild sat crowned at Etzel's side. On the 18th morn they rode forth from Vienna. Many shields were pierced and tilting by spears, which the warriors bare in hand. Thus King Etzel came down to Hunnish land. They spent the night at ancient Himburg, and no one might know the press of folk, or with what force they rode across the land. Ho, what fair women they found in Etzel's native land! At mighty Miesenberg they boarded ship. The water which men saw flowing there was covered with steeds and men, as if 'twere solid earth. The wayworn ladies had their ease and had their rest, and many good ship were lashed together, that neither waves nor flood might ever do them harm. Upon them many goodly tent was spread, as if they still had both land and plain. From thence tidings came to Etzelberg, at which both men and wives therein were glad. Helca's Miney, that ere time waited on their mistress, passed many a happy day thereafter at Krimhild's side. There many a noble maid stood waiting, who had great grief through Helca's death. Krimhild found still 7 royal princes there, through whom all Etzel's land was graced, for the Miney, the high-born maiden Herit cared, the daughter of Helca's sister, be seen with many courtly virtues, the betrothed of Dietrich, a royal child, King Nithwin's daughter. Much worship she later had, Blithe of heart she was at the coming of the guests, for this too mighty treasures were prepared. Who might tell the tale of how the king held court? Never had men lived better among the Huns with any queen. When what the king with his wife rode from shore, the noble Krimhield was told full well who each one was. She greeted them the better, how royally she ruled in Helca's stead. She became acquaint with much loyal service. Then the queen dealt out gold and vesture, silk and precious stones. Whatever she brought with her across the Rhine to Hungary must needs be given all way. All the king's kinsmen and all his liegemen then owned her service, so that Lady Helca never ruled so mightily as she, whom they now must serve till Krimhild's death. The court and all the land lived in such high honours that all time men found pastimes with each heart desired, though the favour of the king and his good queen.